Welcome inside our Rolex watch factory. I'll show you how raw metals and crystals become finished Rolex watches, so stay with us to the end.
At the start of the Rolex manufacturing journey, raw materials arrive at the factory and are carefully unloaded at dedicated receiving bays. Stainless steel bars, gold alloys, and other metals are checked and registered so every batch is traceable. The metals are sorted and stored in secure, climate-controlled racks until each type is needed. From there, steel bars are cut into shorter billets that are easier to handle and transform. Selected alloys move to the foundry, where they are melted and refined to achieve the exact composition required for Rolex cases and bracelets. The molten metal is cast into precise rods and bars that will later be shaped into components. These new metal forms are cooled under controlled conditions to keep their structure stable. Once cooled, the rods are straightened and inspected for any imperfections. The most consistent rods are then fed into cutting machines that slice them into rough blanks sized for watch cases and bezels. These blanks become the starting point for the heavy forming and machining that follows. Next, the rough metal blanks move into a hot forming area where they are heated in furnaces to the right temperature for forging. Powerful presses then strike the softened metal, squeezing each blank into a shape that already resembles a watch case or bezel. Excess metal around the edges is trimmed away so only the useful form remains. These formed pieces go to machining centers where central openings and basic profiles are cut with high precision. The outer shapes of the case, including the lugs and the crown guards, are refined step by step. Separate rings of metal are turned on lathes and begin to take the form of rotating bezels. At the same time, long bars are milled into smaller blocks that will become bracelet links and clasp bodies. All of these freshly shaped pieces are collected in labeled trays so cases, bezels, and bracelet parts stay organized. The metal edges are then deburred and smoothed so there are no sharp corners left from forging and rough cutting. By the end of this stage, every major exterior metal component has a clear, recognizable form, ready for fine machining. As the process continues, the forged and rough-cut parts move to high-precision machining lines. Computer-controlled tools refine every case dimension, cutting surfaces and openings to tight tolerances. Threads for the caseback, crown tube, and other screw-in parts are carefully machined so the watch can later be sealed against water. Small drills and mills create the tiny holes needed for spring bars and bracelet pins in the lugs. On parallel stations, crowns, pushers, and small screws are turned from metal rods into their final shapes. Clasp components are milled and drilled so they can later lock securely and adjust on the wrist. Once the geometry is correct, external surfaces start to receive their distinctive brushed and polished finishes. Laser systems engrave reference numbers and serials on cases and other parts where required. After machining and engraving, all components are cleaned in ultrasonic baths to remove metal dust and oil. They are then dried with filtered air and arranged in clean trays, ready to move on to movement making and assembly. From here, attention turns to the heart of the watch, the movement components. Flat plates of brass are machined into main plates with cutouts, bridges, and precise mounting points. Tiny holes are drilled to hold jewels and to guide the pivots of the gear train. On another line, small discs of metal are stamped and machined into gear blanks before their teeth are carefully shaped and finished. Balance wheels and other regulating parts are formed with exact weights and profiles to keep time accurately. Escapement parts such as escape wheels and pallet forks are produced and checked under magnification. Synthetic jewels are pressed into the prepared plates, forming low-friction bearings at every critical pivot. Movement screws are polished or given their final surface treatments and sorted by size. All of these small components are repeatedly cleaned to remove any residue that could affect performance. Finally, they are sorted into compartmentalized trays so watchmakers can assemble them in a controlled, logical sequence. This prepares everything needed for building the mechanical movement itself. Next, watchmakers begin assembling the movement piece by piece at specialized benches. The main plate is positioned as a foundation, and the gear train wheels are placed onto their jeweled pivots. The mainspring is inserted into its barrel, wound into place, and closed so it can store energy for the watch. Barrels and wheels are then arranged on the plate and covered with bridges that lock the train into position. The escapement and balance assembly are fitted carefully, allowing the movement to start beating as power flows through the gears. Thin layers of lubricant are applied to key contact points using fine tools under magnification. Automatic winding systems, including rotors and associated gears, are added so wrist motion can win the watch later. Each movement is put onto timing machines to check basic rate and stability. Adjustments are made to improve accuracy, regulating the balance as needed. Once these tests are passed, the completed movement is set aside in protective holders to await its dial and hands. Process continues. Approved watches move into the final inspection and pre-pack area. Technicians give the exterior a last visual review, looking for uniform finishes and perfect alignment of markers and hands. Crystals and metal surfaces are wiped carefully to remove fingerprints or dust. Protective films and stickers are applied to cases, bezels, and clasps to guard against scratches during handling and transport. Serial numbers and reference details are confirmed again in the system, so every watch remains linked to its unique identity. Watches are often checked once more for correct date change and smooth crown action. They are then arranged in soft holders or cushions to keep bracelets from rubbing against cases. These holders are grouped onto organizing trays so watches can move safely as sets toward the packing line. Labels and documents associated with each batch are verified before trays leave the inspection zone. At this point, each watch is fully finished and protected, ready to be paired with its presentation box and paperwork. From here, focus shifts to grouping the packaged watches for safe storage and bulk transport. Sealed and labeled master cartons leave the packing area and gather on conveyors at the palletizing zone. Operators position a pallet beneath the line and begin arranging cartons in a stable pattern across the base. Layer by layer, the stack grows as cartons are placed in interlocking rows to improve strength. Once the pallet reaches its planned height, corner protectors are added and the load is moved onto a stretch wrapping station. There, a rotating platform and film arm wrap clear plastic tightly around the stack from bottom to top. A pallet label is then printed, applied to the outside, and scanned so the load is registered in the warehouse system. Forklifts slide their forks under the wrapped pallet, lift it carefully, and drive into tall high bay aisles. The pallet is placed onto a specific rack position, and that location is confirmed again at a nearby workstation. Rows of similar pallets gradually fill the racks, forming a calm reserve of finished Rolex watches resting in storage until they are called for dispatch. Next, when a dispatch order is released, the warehouse system highlights which stored pallet is needed. A forklift travels down the indicated aisle to the correct rack bay and gently lifts the labeled pallet from its beams. The truck and load then return along the main traffic lane toward the outbound staging area. In that zone, the pallet is set down in a marked lane that corresponds to a particular route or customer group. Dock staff scan the pallet label one more time to confirm it matches the pick list. Outside, an outbound trailer backs carefully onto a loading dock while the dock leveler is raised to bridge the gap. Once the ramp is in place, a forklift drives up into the trailer carrying the pallet. Inside the trailer, pallets are aligned and secured with load bars so they cannot shift in transit. After all loads are arranged, the trailer doors are closed and locked, and a numbered security seal is applied. The sealed truck is now ready to move through the gate checks and leave the facility. As the process continues, the sealed trailer stops briefly at the factory gate, where security staff verify vehicle identification and seal numbers before lifting the barrier. The truck then pulls away from the Rolex complex and merges onto public roads. Soon it is traveling steadily along regional highways, carrying the shipment of boxed watches toward a logistics hub. After the long highway leg, the truck turns off into a dedicated access road leading to the distribution center. It passes through the hub's entry control point and is directed to a receiving dock. At the dock apron, the vehicle reverses slowly until the trailer rests against bumpers and the brakes are set. Inside the receiving bay, staff inspect the same numbered seal that was applied at the factory, record its condition, and then cut it. The trailer doors are opened to reveal the stretch-wrapped pallets exactly as they were loaded. Forklifts move up the dock leveler into the trailer, lift the front Rolex pallet, and bring it down to the hub floor. Inbound staging lanes receive these pallets, which are scanned into the hub system and then moved onward to sortation stations. Further along the line, the inbound Rolex pallet is unwrapped at the sortation station so individual master cartons can be handled. Operators cut and peel away the stretch film, set the plastic aside for recycling, and lift cartons onto a feeding conveyor. As the cartons travel forward, scanners read their labels and automatically direct them into the correct lanes based on retailer or region. At the ends of these lanes, staff build new pallets made up only of boxes destined for a single customer or route. Each of these smaller retailer pallets is then wrapped in clear film to stabilize the load. Destination labels are printed and pressed onto the film, so every pallet carries its store name or route code. Pallets are rolled to outbound docks for smaller city delivery vehicles and loaded into compact trucks or vans. These vehicles carry the labeled pallets through urban streets to Rolex boutiques and authorized retailers. At the store, cartons move discreetly into secure stockrooms, where the green presentation boxes are placed onto shelves. In the final step, a boutique staff member brings one boxed Rolex to the display counter, opens it under warm light, and leaves the finished watch quietly waiting for its next owner.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share. See you in our next factory tour video.